I've got a super easy, fun little project for you today, and it's to make this 2-drawer bedside cabinet or nightstand. Now, as usual, you'll find the cut-in list in the description box below. So, let's get started. So, as usual, begin by cutting all of the pieces needed apart from those needed for the drawers, and we'll cut those later once we've actually constructed the main part of the unit. And then for the legs, I'm using these pre-turned legs, and these are 30mm high, so that's 1 3/16 of an inch. So choose something around that height. It doesn't matter if they're a little bit taller or shorter, it won't affect the actual design of the bedside cabinet. And if you haven't got anything like this, then you can just use a piece of strip wood and cut it to 30mm or 1 3/16 of an inch high. But just to let you know that I do sell these in my Etsy shop, and you'll find a link to the shop below. Okay, so we're going to begin by drawing a line across the back and side pieces for placement of the shelf. And so we don't have to do that 3 times, we're going to join those together. So line them up and then just put a little tiny bit of tape across the joins. And make sure you've got a nice flush line along the top there. And then pop a little bit of tape at the bottom as well. Turn that lengthways, and then we're going to do our pencil line, 11mm, and that's 7/16 of an inch from what will become this top edge. So do a little line that side and then a little line at the other edge. 11mm, 7/16 of an inch. Turn the piece and join that up. Place the rule just below the pencil marks to allow for the thickness of your pencil nib, which should be nice and sharp, like that. And then you can remove the masking tape. Okay, so we're now ready to begin construction. So we're going to begin by attaching a side piece to the outer edge of the back piece. So apply glue along one edge of your back piece. Pop that back down, attach the side so that your pencil lines are joining up, and you'll have a nice flush edge along the top and bottom. Press that together, remove any excess glue. I can't see any there, so that's fine. And then bring in one of your 3 identical pieces. So these are the top, middle and bottom, and they're the 3 pieces of the same size. And the first one we're going to attach so it sits at the top edge of those joined pieces and on the inside edge. So apply glue to the side and back edge. Wind's picking up outside, I don't know if you can hear that on camera. And then push that piece into place so it's right along the top edge there. And I'll just press that into place and then turn that around and show you. So have a look from that top edge, make sure everything's nice and flush. You can then bring in the second of those 3 pieces, and this is our shelf piece, and this is going to sit just below that pencil line in the centre there. So apply glue to again a side and a back edge, and then push that into place so it's sitting just below that pencil line. Have a peep inside, making sure you're getting it lined up. And when I say below, I mean so that you're just sort of covering that line. So if you have a look in there, see, you can just sort of see the line, obviously, to position the shelf, but you're sort of covering it as well. Again, give that a good press into place. And this is such a small piece, I realise that I'm sort of getting my hands in the way a lot. I hope you can still sort of follow what I'm doing there. So final of those 3 pieces is going to sit on the inside edge at the bottom there. So again, apply glue to the side and back edge. And you'll notice as well in the cutting list that I advise to cut the side pieces so that the grain is in the direction of the shortest edge. And that's just because the grain of those pieces is facing forwards, or the shorter edge, sorry, is facing forwards, and that edge always looks neater. So whenever you're placing a piece where you have the shorter edge facing the front of your piece of furniture, then always cut the grain that way. But otherwise the old rule applies that the grain should always run in the direction of the longest edge. But certainly in my cutting lists, if that's ever different, then I pop that in the cutting list. Again, give that a good press into place, making sure you've got those nice flush lines along the bottom there. Turn the piece onto the side and apply glue to the exposed edges. We're then ready to put that final piece into place, our final side. So put it into place, you've got flush line the top and bottom and along that back edge. And once you've sort of got it roughly into place, you can pick the piece up and then you can just square it all off. Just have a peep inside as well and make sure that that shelf is sitting just below the pencil line on the other side as well. And I'm going to pop that down and just grab a little bit of masking tape and we'll put a piece over that final side. So just put a piece straight over that side. Pull it nice and tightly, but make sure you're not knocking the top and bottom out of place as you do so. And you can pick it up and pull that around the side. Make sure it's all staying where it should. And that piece can then be left to dry. So whilst that piece is drying, we're going to bevel the top piece, so the bedside cabinet top. And you want to bevel an edge that runs in the direction of the grain, which is a front edge, and then both of the side edges. So one edge in the direction of the grain and both edges that run against the grain. So hold the piece at a 45-degree angle against your sandpaper and sweep it towards you. And you should find that about 5 sweeps are enough, and then do the same at each side. You can then tidy that piece up in your hand with a piece of fine grade sandpaper. So once your main piece is completely dried, remove the tape and then sand that on all edges. And I even sand it face down on the sandpaper, which ensures that you'll have nice flush edges along the front. Now, before I attach the top piece, I've measured and cut the pieces needed for the drawers. Now, as you know by now, I always give the measurements in the cutting list, but do just use those as a guide and measure the openings, height, width and depth, and then adjust these pieces accordingly if necessary. And that's just so that we get a more accurate fit. Now, I found that my top drawer was just under 0.5 millimetre taller than my bottom drawer, so I've actually put a T on the top so that I know where to attach the top piece and then where my top drawer will go, which I'm keeping here on the left hand side. So I'm just going to carefully slide those out of the way, and I can work on those then while the top piece is drying into place, and it just saves a little bit of time. And I'm going to be attaching the top piece first, because then we can put the tape right around and underneath our drawer section. If we attach the legs, then it's going to be more difficult to tape up the top piece, if you see what I mean. So that's why we're doing it in that order for this particular piece. So let me get some glue on my card. So apply glue to your top. And then we're going to attach our top piece so that the straight unbeveled edge is at the back and that the beveled side is face down like that. So get that back edge flush, and then you can check and make sure that you've got an even amount overhanging at each side. And you can even push it flat down on your work surface like that so that you know that those back edges are flush. And then just sort of check at each side, make sure you've got the even overhang. And then hold on to that while you remove any excess glue. And then I'm going to grab a bit of masking tape. So put a piece of tape right over the top. Pull it down nice and tightly. And then you can tuck that round and onto the bottom. And then what I'm going to do is put a couple of clamps just along that front edge. I'll just check in as well at the back to see that that's sticking down. If you find that the back is ever lifted, you can just put a bit of tape over there as well, but mine's looking okay. So I'm just going to put those clamps on that front edge. Can probably just fit 2 in there. And then that piece can be left to dry. And whilst that's drying, we're going to construct the drawers. I'm sure you all know how this goes by now. Apply glue along each edge of the base piece. Pop that down and attach the sides. And this is where you can bring in those spare pieces of strip wood. And when you're working on a smaller piece like this, it just really helps to press the pieces together. You not only get a bit more leverage, but you're also applying even pressure then all the way along the glued edges. I think I just need to go forwards with that one a little bit. That's why it's always a good idea to be checking what's sort of going on. And if you've moved anything out of place, then you can pop it back in again. Press those together. Just carefully slide that piece along. Make a start on the second drawer. Press that together as well. I'm now going to slide that piece along as well. And by now this piece should be dry enough so that you can handle it without it falling apart. So apply glue along your back and front edges. Put that down and attach the front and back pieces. You may need to pull out your sides to make sure that you've got a nice square drawer, a nice flush drawer. Thing again at the front. So get it into shape and then you can give it a good press. And as that's my top drawer, I'm just going to put a little T in the bottom there so that I know which one goes in where. Okay, that can just be pushed to one side to dry and you can complete the remaining drawer. Once you've allowed enough time for the glue to dry, remove the tape and clamps, and we're now ready to attach the legs. So turn the piece onto the top like that, and the legs are going to sit directly in each of the corners. So you'll have a flush front and side edge, and the little line that runs down the centre of the leg will be flush with the corner of the unit. I glue to the square piece like that. Make sure your bottom is dust free, if you know what I mean. And then put the first leg into position. And get your thumb into the bottom drawer there to push it into place. Again, keep checking. I think I may have just pushed mine backwards so the front edge wasn't completely flush again. So let me just reposition that. Like that. And then work your way around. looks good, doesn't it? So that can now be left to dry. And what I want to do is just try the drawers into place. And then whilst that's drying, we can continue with the drawer moulding. So try the drawer. And I have sanded along each side, top and bottom, just very gently, and that now goes back in quite nicely. But if you find that it is sticking, then you may just have to do a little bit more sanding, but only ever do a little bit at a time so that you don't end up with too much gapping around the outside edge. Oh no, it's also a bit worrying when they're a bit tight. Just sort of give them a bit of a tap. Let me just try that bottom one just to make sure before I add the moulding. I'm happy with that. Tap that one out as well. So I'm going to pop the table to one side, and now we can add those drawer mouldings, and this is optional, you can just leave them plain if you want to, but I always think a moulding looks nice on the front of a drawer, especially on a piece of furniture that's sort of quite elegant like this. So again, with the mouldings, I've given the size in the cutting list, but basically they're just the size of your drawer front minus 2mm from the width and the height, and that way you've got that millimetre border around all edges. Now I want to bevel each edge of these, but because we're using the thinner wood, it's quite fragile, so you want to do that in your hand, so just support it as much as you can and just very gently sand using a 500 or something like that. And I'm just going along there at a 45-degree angle. It's really just to get rid of those sharp edges, so it doesn't have to be a strong bevel. So do that at each edge. So we're now ready to glue the moulding into place, centrally at the front of the drawer, and I'm just going to do that by eye. So apply glue to the back of the moulding. And then lay that into place, leaving that even border. Have a look from the front, make sure you're happy with the positioning. Hold on to it and remove any excess glue. Okay. And then just to hold that in place, I'm just going to use a couple of clamps just on the inside edge of the drawer like that. Pop that to one side to dry and do the same with your remaining drawer. So once you've allowed enough time for the mouldings to dry into place, we're ready to attach the drawer knobs. And I'm using these little pre-turned wooden knobs, which have got a diameter of 2.5mm, 3/32 of an inch. So I've just made a little pencil mark in the centre of each drawer front. I've got my largest drill bit in here, or the largest of my mini drill bits anyway. So drill straight down, supporting the drawer as you do so. And then I always like to just give that a bit of a jiggle, because I know the stem of the drawer knob is just a little bit wider than the drill bit. Try the drawer knob into place. That's a bit of a tight fit, so what I like to do then is bring in a cocktail stick and just pop that in the hole and give it a twist, and that just makes it big enough so that you can then get the drawer knob in. If you find that it's too tight, do that. If not, that should just go in nicely. And then, even though I have got a good fit there, I always just like to put a little bit of glue in the drilled hole just to keep it nice and secure. Put that back in. Get rid of any excess glue. And I'll do the same with the remaining drawer. Okay, so these pieces are now ready for paint. And for all of the furniture in the main bedroom, I'm going to be using ivory, and this is a matte emulsion or a matte water-based paint. And these little sample pots come with this little roller, but what you just need to do is pull the roller off like that, lift up the little foil tab, and then dispense some into a pot. So I've got a little plastic pot here, and only put a little bit in and then add more if you need to, and that saves any wastage. And put your little tab back in to keep the paint moist. I always pop that back on as well, and then put your lid back on. So each of those pieces have now had one coat of paint. I'm now going to leave that to dry, and then I'll give it a gentle sand and apply a final coat. But it's now 6:10 on a Saturday evening, so I'm going to call it a day, and I'll see if I can get back to it tomorrow. And there is the completed piece. I'm really pleased with how this turned out. And I think in a dark wood this would make a really nice side table or occasional table for a living room or something like that. I really hope you've enjoyed this tutorial and that this is a piece that you'll have a go at making. Now I've only made one for my bedroom. I'm going to have this on the far side of the bed, and then I'm going to have a larger chest of drawers on the left hand side. So the final thing to do is go and put this in place in the doll's house. So let's do that now. Okay, so that will actually go over that side of the bed. And you can't really see it from looking into the room, but I'll have a little lamp on there, maybe a little bedside clock and a book or something, just do a little display on there. And then over this side I'm going to have the 3-drawer chest that I've already actually done as a tutorial here on the channel. So I'll link to that at the end of this video. For now I'm going to pop that back over this side so that it can be seen. I really like that. So when I make that chest of drawers, I will do a little bit of filming. You can just come and join me as I make it, even though I've already done the tutorial. And I also want to talk to you about my plans for the rest of the room. So we'll have a dressing table and a wardrobe, but I'll talk more about that in that episode. So that's it for today. I really hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and I'll be back soon with a tutorial for some candle lanterns. So for now, take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye!